Look at the phone in your hand. It's a flat slab of glass and metal, with a cluster of camera lenses in the top corner. We've been living with this exact silhouette for years, but the era of safe, predictable hardware is abruptly ending. If you place the last 5 generations of flagship iPhones side by side, the physical differences are nearly impossible to spot without a magnifying glass. Apple settled on a highly successful industrial formula and froze it in place. Because the hardware looks identical year over year, consumers are holding on to their devices much longer. The smartphone has transitioned in the public mind from a cutting-edge status symbol to a reliable, everyday utility appliance. But supply chain data and recent hardware leaks point to a sharp deviation. Apple is reportedly preparing to scrap this incredibly profitable, long-standing chassis design to launch a completely new form factor. This upcoming hardware drop is a calculated, high-stakes maneuver engineered to make current devices look instantly obsolete, forcing consumers into a massive new upgrade cycle. To grasp what Apple is actually doing here, we need to look at how they manage their hardware timeline. They operate in distinct multi-year design eras. In the beginning, the dominant aesthetic was soft and organic. Then came the first structural leap. Apple dropped the curves entirely, moving to a strict industrial sandwich of dense glass and a stark steel perimeter. After drifting back to rounded aluminum for a few years, they returned to those sharp, flat edges, ballooning the overall size to support increasingly massive camera modules on the back. This timeline plots those design eras. Apple doesn't reinvent its shape annually. They maintain a strict multi-year cycle, extracting maximum profit. Projecting that rhythm forward, the pattern breaks. We are in a glaring empty space, overdue for a structural leap. The rumored redesign is a scheduled, inevitable phase shift, executed right on time, according to Apple's own historical playbook. The blueprints for this next era point towards extreme reduction. Supply chain reports indicate Apple is drastically thinning out the device's chassis, testing entirely new composite materials to maintain structural integrity at a fraction of the current thickness. Here we have a side-profile blueprint comparing the current hardware to the projected design. Notice how the bulky, protruding camera bump shrinks and integrates much closer to flush against the newly slimmed-down frame. Creating a device this thin introduces immense engineering hurdles. Apple has to balance this aesthetic minimalism with the harsh thermal constraints of their upcoming neural processors. These new AI-focused chips generate significant heat, meaning the new chassis must act as an incredibly efficient thermal dissipator. The exact shape of the new phone is dictated entirely by these physical realities. The new look is simply the outer shell required to cool and contain the next generation of computing hardware. You might be asking why any of this matters if you use an Android device and have no intention of ever buying an Apple product. It matters because Apple acts as the hardware industry's visual North Star. When they commit to a specific material or silhouette, it immediately reshapes global manufacturing pipelines and component availability for everyone else. Look at the wider market. Major competitors consistently adopt those same stark, flat edges and isolated camera lens layouts. They emulate these specific design cues as a shorthand way to signal flagship quality to consumers. Even titans built entirely on software superiority quickly realized they had to adapt. When they launch their premium alternatives, they frequently package them in familiar aluminum and glass builds that directly align with the standards Apple established. History tells us exactly what happens next. Once Apple reveals this drastically thinner, newly integrated chassis, it will take roughly 18 months for the broader Android ecosystem to retool their manufacturing lines and begin emulating that exact form factor. This upcoming release is going to force the entire industry's hand, rewriting the physical expectations for what a premium device should look and feel like for the next 10 years. Abandoning a proven, highly profitable design is always dangerous. Is this extreme hardware pivot the jolt the stagnant tech world needs right now? Or is Apple taking a massive, unnecessary risk with their most important product? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments.